Street Smarts LinkedIn Live. So we're going to be playing a Kahoot this evening to get us started before our panel starts at 11. And so basically, Kahoot is an online trivia platform. We'll be doing some trivia questions relating to Black History Month, since this is a Black History Month event for the Street Smarts. We've had several other things going on this month. We've been doing a GoFundMe. Be sure to check it out on our LinkedIn page and really support this organization that is supporting Black students and students of color and minority students more broadly. We're also doing a playlist, which you'll get to hear more about in reference to the Kahoot tonight. And we're doing our LinkedIn Live series. We have one this week and another one coming up next week. So, I mean, if you're here now, wonderful. And if you're planning to join next week, we're excited to see you. And if you weren't, be sure to mark it in on your calendar. Another thing we've been doing is, if you've seen our LinkedIn page, we've been posting a Black in Business series. So we have some Black people throughout history and modern ones who we're highlighting on our LinkedIn page. Which has been really wonderful. The posts look beautiful. The people who did them are so talented, and I'm really grateful for their work on this project. So yeah, our Kahoot will start in a few minutes. Hopefully, you'll see that pop up on the screen as we get started. And so, for those of you who are joining just now, again, our Kahoot is going to start in a few minutes. And our agenda for tonight will be the Kahoot. Then at 6:20, our interview with our amazing guest will begin. And then we'll conclude at 7 and give you some just final information and context about the Street Smarts. So in reference to the Kahoot portion of things, which I'm heading up and kind of leading, we're going to have some prizes for you all. So I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say we have first, second, third place. And if you place in first, instead of having a designated prize, you actually get to choose between 3 prizes. So you're going to get whichever prize is best suited to you, which I think is super awesome. And I'm excited to roll that out. So you can see the Kahoot link is up on the screen now. So make sure to type that into your phone. Or you can join online. Go to kahoot.it or www.kahoot.it, and it'll pull up this page. You can type in the code that you see there. So the code is 9488441, and then enter your nickname, your username, and you'll be able to compete as a part of our trivia. And again, we have prizes for first, second, and third place winners. So yeah. Awesome. I see we have our first player, Wakanda Forever. Welcome. Good luck. I'm excited to see who else will be joining us tonight. So again, for those of you who've been here, sorry to go over the spiel again, but for people who are newer, for our LinkedIn Live event tonight, we're going to be doing a Kahoot. So go to www.kahoot.it. This is a Black History Month trivia. We'll have prizes for our top 3 winners, and this is just going to get us started before our interview at 6:20 as a bit of a lead-in and a Black History Month warm-up. So yeah, welcome to TSS Rocks. Wow, lovely to see you. And also to not my real name, a very creative username. And for people who kind of don't know how Kahoot works, basically just enter the code and you'll be able to play synchronously on your device and answer the questions. Questions, you get points for time and for speed. For time, versus and speed versus also correct answer, of course. So you kind of want to focus on those 2 things as you go. Welcome to Mike. I see you're just joining our Kahoot now. We're going to wait a couple, another minute or 2 to get a couple more competitors in, and then we'll get started. 2010 Coyote Camry. I love that name. As personally, my family actually has had like 4 Priuses throughout the course of my lifetime. I think we had a bright red one, a dark red one, a blue one. I think maybe another red one. We've had quite a few, but yeah, I definitely relate to that experience. All right, I see we have some more people coming in. Okay. I think we're going to get started in just a second here. Looks like we've got a decent group, so I think we can go ahead and kick it off. All right, here we go. Black History Month trivia. Get ready. Question 1. Lonnie G. Johnson invented which of the following? See if you guys are quick enough. You know the answer. Get your answers in there before it ends. Oh, 7 seconds left. I actually don't know this one, but I have my hunch. I'm not playing on my phone, but I think I know the answer. Oh, and I was wrong. But the Super Soaker, so congratulations to our 2 who got it right. And I guess we're just going to head on to the next question. Oh, our leaderboard. Congratulations to TSS Rocks and Mike, who are in the lead. What was Harriet Tubman's nickname? Ooh, I do know this one. All right, 10 seconds left. All right, and it answer is Moses. For those of you who have seen, I believe there's actually a movie by this name, and it's a wonderful film. I would totally recommend watching it if you have the time, and it focuses on Harriet Tubman's life story. All right, next question. Oh, Wakanda Forever getting on the board, leaderboard. I love it. Jackie Robinson was famous for playing this sport. All right, this is a classic. If you guys have ever seen 42, really great movie about his life, detailing some of the discrimination he experienced. And for those of you who weren't here necessarily at the beginning, but want to see if you can join in on this trivia, maybe you know that Jackie Robinson was famous for playing baseball. Our LinkedIn, Kahoot code is 9488441. Again, that's 9488441. You can see that in the bottom right, and it should let you join us, but I'm not positive. But hopefully it'll let you join. I can test it out in a second. But we're going to go ahead and go on to the next question for now. Which president of the United States declared February Black History Month? This is a good one. I mean, allies are always important in any sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. So, I mean, the fact that the president was serving in that role and getting Black History Month on the calendars, really nice to see. And it was Gerald Ford. So congratulations to the 2 who got that one right. Let's see the leaderboard. All right, TSS Rocks holding first place. Good job. I see you, Wakanda Forever, sneaking up there. All right, next question. Who is famous for refusing to give up his or her seat on the bus? All right, this is a classic one. I feel like you gotta get this one. Although I have to say she was actually not the first one to do it. Or I guess I gave away. No, all of these people are female. But yeah, she wasn't the first one to do it, but she's the most well-known for it. So yeah. And I just tested the code. If you want to join in, it's 9488441. It's in the bottom right, and you can join in as we go. So that's awesome. All right, next question. Which president issued the Emancipation Proclamation? This one. I mean, if you took U.S. history, I think you got to know this one. I believe he's on some kind of currency for the US. I should really know what it is, but I don't want to get it wrong. I think I do know, but anyways, it's Abraham Lincoln. All right, next question. Let's see that leaderboard. TSS rocks, holding it solid. Go off. So what did the Emancipation Proclamation do? This is also another important aspect of especially Black history, since it relates to some of the fundamental things of how this country was founded and also how this country has evolved even since the Emancipation Proclamation. So it's a good one to know. And it freed all slaves. So we're going to go ahead. Go to the next question. All right. Who was the first person to refuse to give up his or her seat due to race? And this actually relates back to what I was saying earlier. So if you remember what I said about the question on who's famous for doing it, then maybe that should probably inform your answer to this one. So we have 5 seconds left. We'll see who put that knowledge to work. Hey, there we go. So yeah, it actually wasn't Rosa Parks, which is interesting because she's the one who's most well known for it. And since Claudette was also a woman, it's not necessarily a factor of gender, but it does have to do, I think, to some degree with that, maybe. Anyways, we're going to head on to the next question. Madam C.J. Walker was the first woman self-made millionaire. What did she sell to do this? This one, I think, is really a really powerful story, and there's actually a documentary, I believe, on Netflix about her, or not a documentary, I don't think, but like a movie adaptation. It's really well done. I saw some snippets of it when my mom was watching, and it looks really beautiful and powerful. So yeah, hair care products is what she sold. Next question. Misty Copeland is a famous African American. Oh, I have to say, I don't actually. I have it down to 2, but I'm not positive. That this is something my parents definitely would probably hope that I would know. So let's see. Oh, ballerina. Okay, that's what I thought. Yes. All right, next question. Garrett Morgan is famous for inventing the... I don't know this one at all, but let's see if any of y'all out there do. I'm interested. All right, 5 seconds left. Here we go. Traffic light. I did not know that. Wow. All right, leaderboard. For people who are new, again, this is our Kahoot for Black History Month. If you want to join, go to kahoot.it and enter the code 9488441. It's in the bottom right of the screen. If you can't remember that, all the information you need is there, and it'll pop up between questions. All right, let's move on. Who was a famous track and field athlete who won 4 gold medals at the Berlin Olympics? This one, I think there's another movie. I've seen a lot of movies about Black history, but I think there's another movie on this one. Again, powerful, well done, and tells like that story of being Black in athletics in a world that didn't expect or didn't support that diversity. Let's see the leaderboard. All right, next question. Ooh, I know this one. We have a couple questions on a similar theme. I don't want to give it away too much, but this is definitely a good one. All right, let's see who got it. Oh, wow, no one got that one right. That surprises me. All right, well, I guess no one's score changed, so let's just move on to the next question. And this one, George Washington Carver is known for finding 400 uses for what crop? This one I think is pretty cool. It's kind of construed with another fact that's not necessarily true. At least for me, it was. I don't want to like completely give it away again, but I've heard that he was known for inventing peanut butter, but he didn't invent peanut butter, I think, is what I've heard. But he did find tons of uses for peanuts. So let's see that leaderboard. All right. Phyllis Wheatley, when she published her first book. I don't know this, but I've heard a bit about her and her writing. So all of these ages are pretty young, though. Good for her. Wow. I mean, I'm 18. I've never published a book, so I think that's pretty impressive since half the ages are younger than that even. All right, let's hop onto the leaderboard. See where people are at. All right, next question. The Underground Railroad helped slaves escape to where? This is part of that movie about Harriet Tubman. I think I said it was called Moses earlier. I think it might be called Tubman. But it kind of details her involvement with this organization, the Underground Railroad. And so, yeah, the answer is to the north. A lot of people went up to Canada because there was slavery didn't look the same there as in the U.S. And Black History Month was first celebrated for a week. Who created this celebration? I think I know the answer, but again, I'm not positive. So let's see if you guys have got it down better than I do. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. The answer, Carter Woodson. I was thinking Gerald Ford, but clearly that was not correct. So let's go ahead to the next question. TSS Rocks has kept it solid in first place. Good for you. And Thurgood Marshall was the first African-American to serve on the U.S. Ooh. The options, Senate, House of Representatives, Supreme Court, or President's Cabinet. So Congress, basically, or the judicial branch, or the President's Cabinet. So I'm not sure, but Supreme Court. All right. That's awesome. Next question. TSS Rocks. Dang. Keep it going. All right, second to last question. Who is a well-known anti-slavery leader who influenced the Emancipation Proclamation? We have 8 seconds left. Okay, some of these aren't even in the right century. Like, so many of these aren't even in the right century. So if y'all don't get this right, man. All right, Frederick Douglass. Respect to the two who got that. All right, let's keep it going. Last question. Who was the leader in the civil rights movement and delivered the I Have a Dream speech? Some of y'all put this for the Emancipation Proclamation question, so you better get this one right. That's all I have to say. But yeah, we've got 10 seconds left. This one, I feel like this is like a pretty famous question, you know? If you know anything about Black history, not to put any pressure on it, you gotta know this one. All right, yeah. So Martin Luther King Jr. was famous for being a part of the civil rights movement. So let's see that podium. In first place, we have, in third place, we have Mike. Good job, Mike. Keeping it solid. Actually, second place is not too far ahead with Wakanda Forever. And in first place, with 14,280 points, TSS rocks. TSS does rock. Congratulations to y'all. If you look in the description of this event on LinkedIn, you can see my LinkedIn account, which is Jasmine Gonzalez. You can DM me that you won, and I'll make sure to get you your prizes because we want to keep track of we have prizes, so we want to make sure that we get them to you, or we'll have someone monitoring the LinkedIn live chat, so you can also put it in the chat who you are so that we can make sure we give you your prize. But yeah, again, my account is Jasmine Gonzalez. Send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll make sure to get you your prize. So now we're going to move into the next portion of our event, which is the interview. And we're going to have Michael Campbell come on to tell you some more about that.
Hey, good evening, everyone. And hopefully you guys like doing the cahoots, and thank you, Jasmine, for making that happen. So I am here to tell you. Well, actually, I'm here to introduce the folks that will be doing the interviewing. So we've got. Let me just start with Jacob. There he is. Oh, there he is. And then there's Parker. There is. Oh, there's Jasmine again. And then Brahim. And I think that is everyone. Parker, do you want to take it away from here, sir?
Sure. I mean, you want me to introduce the guest, Jermaine? Are we really excited for him?
Is he? There he is.
Yeah.
You guys, okay. I didn't see him on the on my thing here, but I would like to welcome our main guest, who is Jermaine Carter, and there he is at the bottom, and he will be talking about a lot of good stuff. I think it's going to be about diversity and inclusion. I met Jermaine about a year ago. We were introduced by a local president of the African American Doctors Association called Sinclair Miller, and we hit it off big time. And so he's spoken with the students and he's got them inspired. And I've actually interviewed him back in, I think, July. And we went to the barbershop, huh, Jermaine? So I am going to slip out and I am going to let Parker take over. But Jermaine, thank you so much for agreeing to come hang out with Street Smarts. And instead of me taking over, I'm going to let the scholars take over because they've done one heck of a job. And let me see here. There was something I wanted to have going on here, but I can't find it right now. But anyways, Parker, it is all yours.
Great. Thanks a lot, Michael. Really appreciate it. And again, Jermaine, thank you so much for joining us for our first BHM event, Diversity and Inclusion in Corporate America. We're really excited to have you here, and I guess we'll go ahead with the questions.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Make sure everybody can hear me, correct? Right?
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Perfect.
Great. All right. I have our first question, so I'm going to go ahead and get it started. So, being a minority in finance, in the finance industry, obviously has its challenges. So could you speak about some of the political and social barriers you had to overcome throughout your career?
We can touch more, I think, on the social. The political things are kind of be those systemic things. We'll get there as well. But really, a lot of the barriers in our business are typically going to be aligned around what your income was when you were growing up and what you experienced, right? And what you were just introduced to. And for me specifically, some of the things I do now for clients, I didn't even know existed, right? So, one of the barriers is making sure you have access to the right information, and then just different, diversity of thought and, different environments so you can learn new things. And that's a big barrier for a lot of us coming from certain, economic backgrounds. And then represented anywhere as well, you don't have, the people before you advocating for you as much. So that's a minor barrier. I think before when we've chatted, I let you guys know when I was doing, my interviews for me to, actually get into the industry. There were requirements around, how many people you needed to know, and they had to have a certain amount of money. And they wanted a minimum of 200 people, before you entered into the business. And I was able to kind of just weasel my way in there with a small fib around the amount of people I knew. And, that's actually a barrier. They want to make sure that when you enter into the business, in any business, especially on the client acquisition side. If you're an advisor like I am, they want to know people that can actually use your services and you can reach out to them. Well, I knew a couple. I didn't know many, but what I was trying to do was just get my foot in the door. And it was a barrier to not grow up maybe in an environment where you're at a country club all the time, or I wasn't golfing. The sports I played were traditional inner city sports, and the access point is a little bit different if you don't just know people with money. And that's a lot of the struggle I see for certain groups coming into the business. Who can you work with, and who can you convince to believe in you when you're first starting, so that you can survive long enough to make sure you're helping the community the way you want to, but also you're able to build your own financial security through your business. And I think then we were saying some of the political things. Politically, it's some of the things we face kind of go hand in hand. So when you're talking about some of the barriers that are happening politically, you may be talking about, or we're definitely talking about some of the systemic things that have excluded us from income and opportunity, and then representation. And those are definitely going to affect you on the social side. But on the political side, I think all those things that we know about, redlining and income and home ownership and access to education and representation at certain universities, all those things are going to play a part in, the doors that open that open for myself, and then that are going to open up for future generations. And we need to, really address some of those issues. And all those things really just seek to eliminate the access that you should have because of your income, right? So those systemic things are going to affect, you socially. And, those social things are a result of some of the, political, I would say exploitation that's happened over, previous generations. Right. So is that good for you there?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jermaine, our second question is, what kept you going despite being among the few, or even in some cases being the only African American in the room?
Right. And I really think, specifically for some of you guys on the call, we've had to talk. I know some of your backgrounds. You guys are going to find yourselves in situations where, a lot of the times you are going to be the only one. One of the things that really helped me, and I think you guys laughed before when I mentioned it, is that when certain things were said and when I experienced certain things, I was very negatively motivated. And when those things were happening to me, when people were saying all kind of stupid things, or, if I was leaving a golf event and, coworkers were joking like, hey, you're going to get pulled over by the cops when you leave here. And then it actually happens and they're driving by laughing like, and some of them are pulling over like, I can't, we know what's going on. The first thing you have to really believe in yourself, believe in your ability. You're supposed to be in the room. You're going to find yourself there. And, once you become competent and, throughout my time as a wealth management advisor, I made sure through education, through extra work, that I became competent in what I was doing, but not only, competent to the level of where I saw some of my peers, but I was quickly moving beyond them in the understanding of a lot of different arenas associated with planning. So when things get tough, I always thought about, what was actually possible. Again, very negatively motivated. You cannot be discouraged, right? And really, one of the things that kept me motivated and going were, events like this, making sure that for the next group of, individuals coming behind me, that it would be a little bit easier for them because I was going to be able to introduce them to maybe a concept or an idea, or tell them, hey, maybe you should internship here. Or like I've done with, some students at UCLA, talk to them about the financial engineering program there and, really helping them almost change their majors to really try to get into that, that master's program. Because once you get a certain level, I think of expertise, nothing can stop you individually. We will continue to see these macro things affecting us, but on an individual basis, we can absolutely power through, right? And we've seen, all of us have seen examples of men and women powering through and getting things done. And unfortunately, right now, that's kind of what's required, right? So, that, belief in myself, and then, making sure I had a mission and I was clear about what I wanted to achieve and where I was going. And then, once I was clear and once I knew exactly what I wanted to achieve, I just kind of put it in my mind that no matter what happened, no one was going to be able to stop me. And I mean, no one for any reason at all. Right. And, eventually you stop, you know, asking and you start demanding with your expertise and with your performance. Right. And, that's really what we need to do. And then, success, right? Once I started having success, it was a lot easier to stick around, right? In those rooms. Right. And then over time, I think a lot of us, one of the things that happen is we're not often telling the truth about our experience, right? But after a while, and when I became more senior in the business, I wasn't holding my tongue, right? And I didn't feel um, uh, like I had to minimize myself, even though I was the only one there, right? But when I can certainly feel that attitude a lot of times in this business when you have issues and when you're dealing with certain things, you know, there you guys are, we're all going to get that kind of, well, there's a black dude talking, like, we can't take him serious, right? All the things, that go along with all the things we've always experienced are going to be there, but we just can't let us affect, our dreams, our goals, and our aspirations. We have to, work with each other better. And then we just need to be clear about the direction we're going and what we want to achieve, and then just do it. Was that cool, Jacob?
Oh yeah, let's go.
I can add some more to you. Well, you've talked to me before. I can add some more.
I think it's good.
Hey, Jermaine, it's a pleasure to have you on LinkedIn Live today. My third question is, what advice would you give to younger African Americans and people of color seeking to break into the finance industry?
Well, you know what? It actually starts with education. I've had, we've talked before, and I wasn't a great student. One of the things that happened to me a lot with my education, I was the only, always the only Black person there. I started checking out of a lot of situations, like I just didn't want to experience it, and it can affect you. The first thing I would say in finance is, I think someone like me needs to do a better job of really explaining the money that's available on the entrepreneurial side in terms of business and what expertise you need to get there, right? So obviously, the first thing starts with education, right? Most of the students I talk to, I'm really encouraging them to start looking at, becoming experts in statistics so they understand asset pricing models. I'm big on asking, all students, specifically in these underrepresented groups, to be STEM majors. It really starts there. You got to have the expertise, right? Especially mathematical. And then I've encouraged a lot, specifically around financial engineering, because I think once you can do that, you can pretty much do anything you want in finance. But if you want to be an accountant, you got to have an education to do that. A lot of what's experienced on a daily basis in finance is siloed, and it's going to require certain types of educational expertise, and you have to acquire that expertise over time, right? So I think this question ties into number two. The next thing is you really got to believe in yourself, and you can't let anything get in your way. One of the things I've talked about with other students is not wanting to do STEM majors because of some problems they were having with math. And in the end, if it takes someone 2 days to learn something, but it takes you 2 weeks to learn something, 5 years from now, that won't matter when you're serving your clients or if you're serving your company or your community, or you're working in a corporate environment and you're practicing at an expert level. those things won't matter. So it's really been around, advocating for, students like yourselves and scholars like yourselves to take the first step, right? Take the first leap in terms of diving in your, education and developing your expertise, and just and we have to be better. And I think, individuals and like myself need to be better about not sugarcoating the experience, right? A lot of times, if we sugarcoat the experience, and you guys are coming behind us, and you're not exactly sure what you're going to experience. And some of the success we've had and I've had is telling everyone this is exactly what you're going to experience in this community, in this place, and it just happens like clockwork. Well, if we know that, and we know the environments in which we're dealing, then we can develop, we can start to play chess and not checkers, right? But the first thing, I really encourage is, the development of your expertise. So then nothing can be said, right? So once you're an expert in your particular, I think, interested field of finance, uh, then you can start holding some feet to the fire. Once you become an expert, and you can say, hey, I belong here, and you don't have to knock on the door. You can actually kick on some doors and bang on some doors, and and then tell the truth about your experience, and then smile, and then just keep making progress. And the the biggest point about, you guys heard me talk about this before, is ownership, right? Uh, I'm really big on, you guys getting experience, becoming experts, and then you're establishing a business model to maybe challenge some of the business models that exist, or you guys are challenging some of the companies that exist in, accounting or wealth management, or you're developing your own asset pricing model, using the frameworks that were created before. It's just we first need the expertise, and then we just have to have the drive to go out and do it, right?
Definitely. Thank you for your answer, Jermaine.
Was that all right? You want to anything I didn't
perfect.
touch on that we want to touch on? Perfect.
No, perfect. Thank you so much, Jermaine.
Jermaine, I can't, first and foremost, I mean, this is fantastic, the opportunity to speak to you again. Last time it was really a treat, but this time, on this platform, it's really great to talk to you. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Yeah, no, absolutely. We recognize that there is opportunity, for young minorities candidates to break into the finance industry, however tough that is, and whatever the statistics say. You are living proof, that it is possible that African American, can come into the industry and, make waves, have substantial amount of success, but the real question is, was the journey worth it? Was overcoming all of those barriers, all of those, tough hardships, like you mentioned, was it worth the sacrifice of where you stand today?
Yes. Short answer, it's absolutely worth it, because it's what I wanted to achieve, and what you guys want to achieve, and and where you guys see yourselves absolutely worth attaining, even when it gets tough, right? So, and you just cannot be discouraged, right? The first thing we got to change is even the language, right? So I've made different corporate environments, when they said minorities, like, explain what you mean to me by minority, right? So we have to adopt some of those language. So now it's getting fun for me to look back at all the people who told me not to enter into the business. I had mentors who told me, black and white, who told me, Jermaine, just go to, my degree was in biology, just go to med school, right? Because you don't want to be in a business where, you're showing up to someone's house and they don't want to let you in the door, right? And, that absolutely happened, right? Or, you don't want to be dealing with all societal's pressures while you're actually trying to build your business. You just want to make a good living and take care of your family, right? So, my mentor's idea of that was just me continuing on going to med school and doing, what I had to do there. But yeah, it's worth it. And it's really, really worth it when I get to talk to people who told me that it wasn't going to work. I'm actually not that quiet about that. And most of them, I kind of, I block their LinkedIns and everything now, after they understand kind of, what's going on. But you know what? you guys are supposed to be in the business if you're talented, right? When you talk about is the journey worth it, I think one of the things, we fail to realize is that it's been at the expense, the development of the country has been, stymied by your lack of presence there. Does that make sense? Right. This is what they've been missing is other perspectives, other ideas, other areas of creativity. Right. So when you talk about, is it worth it? You must get there. Right. And, speaking with some of you guys specifically that are interviewing me, I know what you guys got going on educationally and what directions you're heading, opportunities and doors you've opened for yourselves. You have to realize that, because you've been severely underrepresented, right? And I don't want to say it that nicely, severely underrepresented, since excluded, right? Since we've been excluded, and every single investment company in the country has, 0.50%, African American, yada, yada, yada. And now there's all these business case studies and, they want to throw around, D&I and all these other, we're hiring BIPOC, a lot of things that just drive me crazy because, it's a lot to the next one. I know we'll touch on that later, but, yes, because you guys don't only have to work for these organizations, but you can start to build your own organizations. And, we need to do a better job making sure you have access to capital. But driving, your entrepreneurial spirit is really the only way to make sure that you're going to be represented properly, right? And what I mean by that, my first hire when I was in management was someone who looked exactly like me, right? And now he's doing, really well. He's in a meeting right now with an NFL player, right? And he's 2 years in, and he's doing really well, and he's starting to build his brand. And the only requirement that I gave him when he was hired was, there's going to be another guy like you or another woman, like yourself, and they need help, and they need just that little bridge. And all you got to do is, throw down a little bridge, and they'll run away from, even what you're doing, right? So it's worth it, but you guys have to realize and not be limited by what you see others around you doing, or even some of the things that I've accomplished, right? So, Parker, Jacob, you guys, Jasmine, I've talked to you guys, everyone here, you guys quickly should be moving beyond what even I've accomplished, right? Because, we've done, a little bit, we've made a little bit of progress, but, nothing like what I have expected coming from you guys. Sorry, this thing is bouncing here. Right. So, yeah, it's, it's absolutely worth it.
I want you to touch on again, like highlighting, looking at it from the other perspective, saying that someone watching here has influence, at a major company who works in HR and has hiring influence. What's the importance for them seeking diversity? Like what's the real benefit added? And not only that, what are some of the damaging effects, with their lack of diversity that some of these firms have experienced in the past and, maybe experiencing now? Like what are those effects?
Well, the biggest, I think the largest damaging effect is now you're talking about the exclusion. And if you ask me, this is, I asked someone at, my home office one time, why do you guys pretend like you guys care about diversity and inclusion? This was a couple of years ago. I said, because you obviously don't right now. But what they said to me is that, the country's browning, and, 70 years from now, we don't expect the market to look the same way it does now. But, one thing you have to realize, we've been on the consumption side of things. We need to get on the production side of these things. So, the obvious benefit for anyone in business is the revenue that can be generated from opening up different wallets, right? Opening up different markets, right? So for years, and this is what I mean, for years, we're talking about the complete loss of, GDP and translated into companies that are trying to acquire market share. That's revenue that they're losing, right? And when you guys are talking about, diversity and inclusion as a policy, I don't care what anyone talks about. The only thing that anyone's measuring that matters is going to be revenue and, how the business is performing and what's being generated, right? So we can just speak to those terms. They've been losing money, right? and the country's been losing GDP points because of the systemic things we're facing financially. The exclusion, the underrepresentation have hurt clients, hurt companies' balance sheets, right? And you can see that with specific organizations who are getting their revenue specifically from our community, right? You can see the commercials that are starting. They had McDonald's had commercials, with us in them, 15 years ago because we were buying a ton of McDonald's, right? So that's really what's at stake here, right? And then beyond that, the creativity, you're missing different points of view, different thoughts. One of the things I know you guys know is I always tell everybody I've been running reconnaissance for, the last 12 years. And I understand everything about the country at large, how to survive, what to say, what not to say. And if I understand everything that I'm supposed to do and everything about the group in power, and they don't understand anything about me, then it really starts to give me an advantage when I start approaching business, situations, right? And client acquisition, deal making, all those things have been affected by your exclusion because they've been missing out on your dollars and on our dollars, which happen to be now like the 14th or 15th largest economy in the country, right? And the only thing that moves anyone in this country is going to be, the dollar bill, right?
And it sounds like, and I don't want to be too cynical when asking this, like that, diversity and the efforts that they're making is more of a economic decision than an actual social decision. That this is impacting our balance sheets, is impacting our financial statements, which is impacting our stock price. So we need to actually do something to turn that around rather than so much, this is kind of what's right, or the direction and what people want, what the social factors are heading towards.
You know what? Don't call certain things that are true cynical, right? You just have to speak your truth, and then some people have to deal with it. And that's just the way I've approached it. It's a little bit easier for me because I'm a lot more pig-headed than I think you guys are. You guys are probably more intellectual than I am. But that is absolutely the reason, right? You're starting to see a migration, specifically with black women starting businesses, acquiring wealth. And even with all the progress that's being made, it's just not enough, right? And we've got to hold, the feet to the fire. Are you guys familiar with like the mortgage initiative Killer Mike had down in Atlanta, where they raised, I believe, I don't know, 100 million or something like that dollars from mortgages with black-owned banks, right? Well, Wells Fargo didn't want to miss out on, those fees and those dollars and the profits that come along with mortgages. So then they started a specific initiative to provide mortgages in our communities, right? So they are chasing revenue, they are chasing dollars, and that's great. You use it to your advantage. You start a business, you capitalize on that, you reinvest the money, and you build you build your own market share with those things, right? But, I will say this, diversity and inclusion has just been a joke, I talked to someone on LinkedIn one time, and she wasn't happy, but she did tell me later I was right. And I said she was hired as a diversity and inclusion officer, and I said, well, you are the diversity, you were the diversity hire for the business, and now they've addressed it, and then there's not going to be any other movement there. And you're starting to see that with a lot of articles being written from people that are hired and, in those positions where they're the only position hired and nothing else happens. Right. And even worse, you have someone who doesn't look like you. And this is something big. And we touched on it a little bit before in our previous conversation, is you guys got to tell your story yourselves. You can't let someone else tell your story. Right. You guys have to tell it. It needs to be true. It needs to be authentic. And it doesn't need to be couched in a bunch of BS to make everyone else feel comfortable, but you also don't need to be, so angry about it that you paralyze yourself, right? You just recognize and state the facts. And then, okay, now that we know where we are and, some people aren't going to agree. Now, what do we need to do to kind of move beyond some of the things that we're experiencing today, right? But, make sure you're just telling you tell your truth, and you tell it, in the way that it actually happened, and not to make other people comfortable with what your experience was, right?
Yeah, and Jermaine, that's really very well said. I think that's a perfect segue, into our last question. Really, just like in the wake of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, the social justice movements, raging across the country, this past year. Firms have as you mentioned, like seemingly all of a sudden began to emphasize diversity, and championing it as the number one objective. Do you see this like as a shift, like a strategic short-term shift, self-preservation move, you could say, like done by companies just to protect their bottom line, to protect the firm's reputation? Or, is this something, do you see more genuine? Is this something more sustainable, a sustainable trend in the future? And we talked about before how the country is getting more brown. White men won't be the majority for too much longer. So like, is this something that we can actually count on to can see this consistent change throughout the next few decades?
So I was talking about this with a friend the other day, and he said something to me, and we're talking about the social changes, and he said something to me, and it kind of summed up our conversation, and it's along the lines of the question you just asked. And he said, "No one said all lives matter until we said Black Lives Matter," right? And that's where I think the country is in general. That's where business is in general, and that's kind of just where they operate, right? So if we look across, there should be a strategic long-term shift. Will there be? If I answer that question and we're overly optimistic about it, which you guys should be, we talked about this last time, you guys should be overly optimistic of what you guys can get done, right? But that's not to say, or, I don't want to discount the things that were done, years before I existed that were, completely destroyed, right? And I think, Chris Rock said, there's been zero Black progress. White people are just less crazy, right? Chris Rock said that. So when we're talking about long-term strategic things that should be shifted, what you're really talking about and what you guys really need to understand is you guys are talking about competing on a global level now for income, right? And regardless of what someone says, and this is why when I'm encouraging someone to be, go to financial engineering school, or when I'm encouraging you to, just be the smartest person in the room, however long it takes you, it's because of that competition that's really going to take place. No one's giving up income willingly, right? Regardless of what they're saying. And they're definitely, you can see, diversity is really a way for them to, increase corporate profits in their business case model, right? So when they're thinking about it, if there were no profits around it, it wouldn't be, wouldn't even be talked about, right? This is not something socially happening from, I think, the powers that be. Now, what I will say about that is some of you guys' peers, you can see they don't care as much, right? You could walk in blue and they'll march down the street with you and they don't want to see you guys mistreated, right? And that social change, that long-term strategic change is going to come from, I think, the generation right below me, right? But above me, no one's strategically, giving up opportunity and income for a group unless you have to begin to take things in a strategic fashion. We have to begin to, pull economic resources in a direction that are, I think beneficial for, our group long term. We also have to build, infrastructure in the financial firm so that in the financial space so that, when you guys graduate and all your friends graduate, there's actually a place that they actually want to go work at, right? One of the worst things that happens is to show up at work. I've been in places and I've left working places where I was the only Black person. And I thought, I got to get out of here. Like, I don't, this is just not going to work for me. Right. And, some of the long-term strategic change that comes from the awareness or the willingness now to hear something that's been true for a long time. Some of that awareness has taken place. is going to open doors for you guys, I believe, to own, right? And make your wealth systemic and build companies that are challenging kind of the status quo, but that are also profitable, right? And, you know, when that happens, you better believe, you know, if you raise, you know, your own $100 million for a mortgage program in our community and start giving out mortgages and you exclude JP Morgan from that profit, there's going to be some strategic shifts there, right?
Mm.
But that's how it's going to happen. It's not going to happen as a result of you know, some awakening that's taken place. Because if that was the case, you know, you guys would always be in the door. I mean, you guys would already be there, right? And you know, there's you know, how many universities, historically black colleges with a finance department, right? Or where they're graduating X amount of people, and you still don't see them represented. You still don't see us really represented in these places. So it's going to have to be strategic, where you're really going to have to start affecting those balance sheets of these organizations that have been historically excluding you, right? Right, and that's going to be the long-term strategic change, and that's where it's going to take place. And then socially, you know, look, the your peers are different than my peers. They're a lot more aware. They're a lot more willing to listen. You know, is that kind of what you guys are experiencing when you guys are, you know, you guys work together, you know, a little better than I think previous generations. You know, I'm just really impatient. So, you know, I want to experience heaven in my lifetime, right? You know, I'm hoping that you guys as kids aren't having, you know, the same conversation that we've had the last, you know, few times we've talked about, you know, being, I don't want to say underrepresented or lack of diversity and inclusion, being excluded from the experience of America when it comes to the, you know, the fruitful side of what you should be experiencing, right?
And what I got out of that, what you're saying, Jermaine, is just like the economic factors are much more important than the social, as far as pushing the dial and pushing the envelope.
Well, it's dual, right? Politically, you know, they were talking about reparations, right? And I listened to the House hearings, and I was listening to the yay and to the nay, and then I thought to myself, well, so there's a two-sided, you know, this coin's two-sided. What we don't do is let everyone in the country pretend like they magically created this wealth without policy, right? And social policy, right, or social inertia, and then actually the political policy, right? So the political things where, you know, you went to war and you came home and you got a GI Bill, right? But if you were black, you didn't get a GI Bill. We need to address those specific things now with policy, right? And you can one vote. This is why, you know, there's a group of people in the country right now trying to prevent as many of us from voting as possible, because it really matters, right? So we can need to affect change, one, in policy arena, and then we need to affect change, one, in the production arena, where we're not consumers of everything all the time, but you're starting to produce, right? And you specifically, right? You're learning a fixed income strategy, or you're learning an equity strategy, and you're building your own fund, right? And then you're working harder and you get some applied mathematicians and you build a fund and you get returns and you build a process that's sustainable. That portion needs to be there as well. And then we also need to make sure that we're promoting policies that are going to benefit us in an economic fashion, right? And that's what real power is, right? So it's two sides, you know, to that question you said. It has to be, you know, it has to work. Remember, we're a part of a you know, a global economic system, right? And, you know, one thing that I would always hear discussions around, well, this needs to change and this needs to change. And I didn't really want it to change. I like capitalism, right? I just don't like being excluded from it in some arbitrary fashion because of the color of my skin, right? But, you know, I like the idea that if, you know, I work hard, or if you guys work hard, you can achieve things that others can't, right? Or if you guys decide to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning on a daily basis and study, or, you know, you wake up when you're professional, you wake up at 4 o'clock and you grind till, you know, 11 o'clock at night, and, you know, Have you guys seen that Jeff Bezos picture behind him with the dirty Amazon sign? It was like painted. He like colored it with crayons, and it was sideways, right? You know, that's the American dream, and it's not. It hasn't been that way for us, or even the belief isn't there that that can be achieved, but it can be, right? So we need to do that part of this, and or you need to be an expert. So when you're within an organization, you're not getting stuck. You're moving past your peers. So you got to have that expertise. But then there needs to be, a coordinated effort on all fronts to make sure, that you guys can live where you want to live. Right? Finance includes housing. Right? Finance includes loans and mortgaging and credit. Everywhere where someone right now is taking, hundreds of $1 million in fees right now from our community, right? And then, there's no one that looks like us there except for someone that works at the call center. It's easy. You just don't do business with them, and you start a business with a better business model that's more efficient, maybe a little bit cheaper, right? And you start to get those dollars and recycle them throughout your community, right?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Jermaine. This is really a treat, and really appreciate you coming on for our first BHM LinkedIn Live event. We really appreciate your time.
Oh man, anytime. You guys just let me know what you guys need. I'm excited to, what you guys, talking to you guys the other day, I'm excited for what you guys got going on, especially Miss Harvard. And then, I'm going to get an autograph from you guys, and I expect, 10 years from now, you guys to be looking at me saying, Jermaine, you got to keep up. Right. And that's really, Jacob's laughing, but, he's talked to me, I think, a few more times than you guys. I really, that's my expectations for all of you guys, is that, you guys are definitely, starting to move the needle even beyond what I've done. Right. All right.
Well, thank you again, Jermaine, for joining us. Thank you for all the audience members out there who decided to tune in with us, TSS Diversity and Inclusion event. Really appreciate you. Please go out and go visit our website, tss.org. Really great stuff. Go visit our store with some really great items as well. GoFundMe, please go donate. It really helps us out a ton as far as helping our operations. And tune in next week, Thursday at this time. For a Leaders of Tomorrow event, covering, okay, this is where we are now, but where are we going in the future? Focusing more on that. We'll be having Troy Prince, a nonprofit organization leader of Wall Street Bound. So thank you so much, everyone, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks again, Jermaine.
You guys have a good one.